Hannah had always envisioned that life would become easier after she remarried. Her new husband, Mark, was everything she had hoped for: kind, successful, and supportive. But there was one part of her new life that she hadn't expected to be so difficult: her relationship with Mark's 15-year-old son, Ben. Ben, quiet and wary, had grown up as the center of his father's world since his mother's passing. Mark had been his anchor, and Ben was reluctant to let anyone else into their tight-knit bond. He viewed Hannah as an outsider, someone who could never fill the void left by his mother. Despite Hannah's best efforts cooking his favorite meals, showing interest in his hobbies, attending his school events, Ben seemed indifferent, his walls unshaken by her kindness. It was a rainy evening in early autumn when everything changed. Mark had to leave town for a last-minute work trip, leaving Hannah in charge. As a heavy storm rolled through, the rain hammered against the windows, and the lights flickered before the power went out completely. Hannah found herself in pitch black, unsure of what to do. To her surprise, Ben didn't panic. Instead, he calmly stood up from the couch, grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, and headed toward the basement. "I'll take care of it," Ben said, his voice steady as he led the way down the stairs. Hannah hesitated for a moment but followed him. The storm outside raged on, but the steady beam of the flashlight in Ben's hands gave her a sense of security. She stepped cautiously behind him as he opened the door to the basement, where the fuse box was located. The smell of damp wood and the sound of the storm outside filled the air. "I think it's the main fuse. Dad showed me how to reset it when this happens," Ben explained, focused on his work. Hannah was struck by the quiet confidence in his voice. She had always seen Ben as distant and unsure of himself, but now she was witnessing a side of him she hadn't seen before: capable, self-reliant, and strong. "You know a lot about this," she said, unable to hide her surprise. Ben glanced up for a moment, a small, almost shy smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Yeah, well, Dad's good at fixing things. He's taught me a lot." Hannah watched as he worked, marveling at how easily he handled the situation. With a few swift adjustments, the lights flickered back on, casting the basement in a warm, welcoming glow. "All fixed," Ben said, closing the fuse box and stepping back. For the first time since she had met him, Hannah felt like she saw the person Ben truly was. He wasn't just a quiet teenager avoiding her, he was a young man with depth, intelligence, and a quiet sense of responsibility that reflected his bond with his father. "Thank you," Hannah said, her voice soft but sincere. "I don't think I would have known what to do if you hadn't taken charge." Ben shrugged but didn't say anything. Instead, he started walking toward the stairs but then stopped, turning to her. Maybe you're not so bad," he said hesitantly. Hannah smiled, feeling her heart lighten. "I think we're starting to figure this out," she replied. The following months were not without their struggles, but the dynamic between Hannah and Ben gradually shifted. No longer did she feel like an outsider in her own home. It wasn't immediate, but each small breakthrough added to their growing bond. They began spending time together outside of their usual routines, like when Ben needed help with his schoolwork or when they would take the dog for long walks after dinner. One evening, after a long day of school and work, Ben found Hannah in the kitchen baking cookies for a family gathering. "You're making those peanut butter ones, right?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Hannah looked up in surprise. "How did you know?" she asked with a chuckle. Ben grinned. "They're my favorite." "You're always welcome to help, you know," Hannah offered, half joking. Ben walked over, taking a seat at the kitchen counter. "All right, show me how it's done." They worked together in comfortable silence, with only the sound of mixing bowls and occasional laughter filling the room. That evening, as they sat down to enjoy their cookies, Hannah felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She hadn't expected it to be easy, and it wasn't. But little moments like this, where they could share something simple and enjoyable, made the effort feel worth it. As time went on, the relationship between Hannah and Ben continued to grow. Though it wasn't without its bumps, Ben, while no longer distant, was still a teenager with all the frustrations and complexities that came with it. But Hannah had learned not to rush him, to give him space when needed, and to celebrate each victory, no matter how small. One day, Ben came to her with a problem about applying to colleges. He was unsure of his choices and needed advice. Hannah listened carefully, offering support, and together they worked through his options. It was a moment that made her realize just how far they had come from the days of silence and awkwardness. When Mark returned home from a work trip, he was surprised at how much had changed. Ben had opened up to Hannah in ways he hadn't before. Mark could see the effort both of them had put into making their family work, and it made him proud. One evening, while they were all sitting around the dinner table, Ben turned to Hannah and said, "I know I didn't make it easy at first, but I'm glad you're here. I guess you're part of the family now." Hannah smiled, feeling her heart swell. It wasn't the easiest road, but it had been worth every challenge. In that moment, she realized that true family wasn't built on perfection or smooth beginnings. It was forged in patience, understanding, and the willingness to face challenges together. And with Ben, she knew that the road ahead would be one they could walk together, one step at a time.